Public Workshop. Today is March 6, 2019, the time 7:30 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, or record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen. Here. Councilman Seaton.
Here.
Councilman Voigt.
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh. Here. Mayor Hache.
Here. Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us for a moment of silence in honor of the brave men and women serving our nation's armed forces and as first responders. Thank you. We will begin with public comments, not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Come on up.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight, Mayor Hache and members of the council and friends.
Would you please put the microphone in front of you?
Pardon me?
Pull the microphone down to you. Thank you.
Sure. I am Louisa Helligers. I'm a retired volunteer and the manager of the Bergen Volunteer Center's Redefining Retirement Program, and we just want to spend a few minutes to talk to you tonight about that program. With me, I just want to introduce two of our volunteer interviewers, who we call matchmakers. They're in the back, Linda Crescione and Rosemary Morisco. Although she was unable to attend tonight, I'd also like to recognize Deanna Shablick from the Ridgewood Parks and Recreation Department, who has helped us arrange space for our monthly informal information sessions since our program launched in October of 2017. So what is Redefining Retirement all about? Essentially, it's about older adults who want to give back using their life and work skills, experience, and interests to volunteer in local nonprofits or social service organizations. Our main goal is to help four groups: the individual retirees who want to do something meaningful, skills-based work, the nonprofits who need experienced help but might not be able to afford it, clients who are served by the nonprofits, and thus the community at large. We call this a win-win-win-win. We accomplish this by connecting interested retirees with Bergen County nonprofits who need the unique skills the volunteers bring. This keeps the volunteers active locally, doing something that is possibly new to them, that makes a difference, and that may help them age in place in a community where they might have lived for many years. Since our launch, Redefining Retirement has been growing steadily. As of today, we have 39 diverse participating organizations, including 32 nonprofits, 2 hospitals, and 5 internal Bergen Volunteer Center programs. What are some of the agencies? It's quite a diverse mix, including 6 based in Ridgewood. Ridgewood Historical Society and Schoolhouse Museum, Valley Hospital, Valley Home Care and Valley Hospice, the Ridgewood Symphony, and 2 choral singing groups, New Jersey Choral Society and the Pro Art Chorale. To ensure skills-based volunteer connections, we asked participating organizations what specific volunteer skills they needed to achieve their goals. To date, since that October 2017, we've matched 90 volunteers in volunteer roles in 29 agencies and counting. We can never know where a volunteer role can lead us, or what it can do, or what it can teach us, or how well it can fulfill needs we didn't even know what we had. But I can promise you this, and all the volunteers have learned this as they work with us: we get more back from volunteering than we ever give by far. I have with me here today, and I will give them to Donna when I'm done, applications to be direct service volunteers or to be matchmakers, and also our brochures. My contact information is on all of these. I have business cards here too. My contact information is on all of them, and you can also find more information about redefining retirement on our website, which is at www.bergenvolunteers.org, and that includes a schedule of all of our monthly information sessions in 6 towns around Bergen County. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tracy Tazi from 17 Sherman Place. I'm here in regards to the difficult situation, as I'm sure you've all heard over the
Would you
last...
speak into the microphone, please?
I'm sure you've heard over the last 3-4 years regarding the bad volume of traffic that comes through Sherman Place. I see that there's a proposal to put no parking on the west side of Sherman Place, which wouldn't be a good idea, because the majority of the volume of traffic that comes down that way coast, they go into the dentist's office and then they continue on Sherman Place. If you make no parking on that one side, which is, I guess, the westbound side, you'll cause people to go down Sherman, make a U-turn, and come back to park on the east side. It will increase the number of U-turns both at the dead-end side of Sherman Place and also by Washington, because people will go straight and then they'll make the turn by Washington and come back on the other side. I received an email yesterday, I guess from Chris, indicating that he was going to make no parking on the west side and also on the frontage of 17 Sherman Place, which is where I'm located. There's such a bottleneck of cars that come through back and forth, and it's just getting more and more difficult. Many people are even parking the wrong direction, because they'll come through the dentist office and park on the 17 Sherman side in the wrong direction. I think my neighbor's been sending pictures to Chris, so it's getting more and more difficult. So it seems as though it would make more sense not to have any parking, because you have a bottleneck, and when you get to the dentist office, either one person has to move on the other side or another person has to move in order to pass. So it wouldn't be good to have it just on the westbound side, because of the fact it's going to increase the number of U-turns and it'll still have the bottleneck situation. So I would request that it not be just on the westbound side. Both sides make sense because there's only 4 houses there. But you have the situation where it's a very, very narrow street, similar to the next street over. I think it's Garfield. So anyway, that's my, I guess, recommendation. But again, Chris had indicated there would be no parking. That would help tremendously if it was not on West Side and if it was not in front of Sherman, because you don't have that volume of traffic coming together, trying to get into the dentist office, and vice versa. You wouldn't have people making U-turns both by Washington and also making U-turns at the dead end of Sherman Place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public comments. Chris Rosazza is here, our village engineer, so we'll hear from him as to what suggestions he's making as to how to handle the situation of parking on Sherman Place. But thank you for your comments. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll go to manager's report.
Okay, I want to remind everyone that this Sunday, March 10th, we will all turn our clocks forward, spring forward. Spring is coming. I hear next week we may have 50-degree weather after yesterday and today's frigid weather. I want to update everyone on the outdoor cafes that we discussed last week. We actually went out and measured. I know there was a recommendation from one of our restaurants that on the parallel parking with the meters, we allow for 18 inches instead of the 30 inches. In measuring it, we realized that as people open their doors, they need that swing in order to be able to open them fully. So it will remain at 30 inches. I would like to remind everyone that on days when the snow is falling or ice is forecast, to bring your garbage cans to the curb for collection. Ridgewood staff will only resume rear yard garbage pickup once there is a path to the garbage cans, which is clear of ice and snow. So if it's not clear yet, just please continue to bring it to the end of your driveway. Also, I want to remind you, all snow must be removed in residential zones within 24 hours of it falling. A public hearing will be held Tuesday, March 19th at 7 p.m. during the regularly scheduled freeholder meeting. The purpose of the hearing is to obtain public comment on a grant application which is being submitted to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Program. The application is for improvements in ecological restoration involving the Wild Duck Pond area located at the Saddle River County Park. The meeting will take place in the County Administration Building, public meeting room on the 5th floor of 1 Bergen County Plaza in Hackensack. The Division of Land Management will make a brief presentation followed by a question and answer period, and all residents are encouraged to attend and participate. The Board of Education election will be held on April 16th for a vote on the budget only. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The Board of Education in April 2020 will have a vote on both the candidates and the budget, and there will be no November Board of Education election this year. March 26th is the final date to register for this year's Board of Education election. The village clerk's office will have a staff member over in the lobby of the library from 4:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. on that day to register voters. So as long as you register by 9 o'clock that evening, you will be eligible to vote in the April 16th Board of Education election. Mayor Hache holds Meet the Mayor every second Saturday of the month from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the caucus room right here on the 4th floor. The next date will be this Saturday, March 9th. Please call the village clerk's office if you wish to make an appointment. If no appointments are made, Meet the Mayor will be canceled until the next month. Please sign up for e-notices by clicking on the button Sign Up for Alerts on the village website. This way you'll get all e-notices. You can also sign up for Swift Reach. The annual weight loss challenge postcards have been mailed to every Ridgewood household. The challenge begins on Thursday, March 21st. To sign up, please call the number on the postcard. I've mentioned that the village will be using geese peace protocols to humanely reduce the geese population. More information about reporting geese nests and volunteering to help with geese peace is on the village website. That's it.
Thank you. Council reports. Councilman Seaton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few announcements. Ridgewood Environmental Advisory Committee and the Green Team, as part of the Sustainable Jersey Bergen Hub, will be holding 2 events involving styrofoam. So there's a subcommittee that got a grant through Sustainable Jersey for $20,000 for the Bergen County Hub to host education and collection events in towns and several towns throughout the county. Ridgewood is one of the participating towns. So on March 24th from 2 to 3 p.m., grades 1 to 5 are children from grades 1 to 5 are welcome to go to the stable. That's a Sunday for the Science of Styrofoam, an education event. And the second event will be the collection event, and that will be held on May 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's a Saturday, and that will be in the Graydon Pool parking lot for anybody who wants to drop off packaging, styrofoam, or piles that you might have in your garage or wherever else you store those. And just one more reminder that Earth Day and the Daffodil Festival will be held in Van Ness Square Memorial Park Sunday, April 14th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor.
I don't have much. Planning Board was canceled this past Tuesday, and HPC is canceled next week. No applications before either. Just as a reminder, in the very near future, within the next week or so, postcards, you'll be receiving postcards for the visioning process for the master plan. Those postcards should be hitting mailboxes very soon. We encourage everyone to visit visionridgewood.org and take the visioning survey. The visioning survey is the first step toward the new master plan, which we'll be working on once this process is done. This is a real opportunity for public participation in the future of the village of Ridgewood, and that is a planning and policy document which talks about a number of issues within the village, and it's just an opportunity for people to come in and weigh in on how they see the village in 30, 40, 50 years from now, and what village will leave for future generations. So again, Visit visionridgewood.org, look for those postcards in the mailboxes, and for folks that don't have computers at home, you'll be able to contact the village clerk's office, and we will mail a hard copy of the survey, and that can be returned directly to the village clerk's office, and we will have that input manually. And so that really is an opportunity for everyone to participate. We look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Walsh?
The only thing that I have to report is Ridgewood Library's second Scoop Night will be tomorrow evening from 6 to 8 p.m. at Ben & Jerry's, and then the library will be presenting its budget proposal at our budget meeting on Friday.
All right, thank you. Councilman Boyd?
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Center Advisory Board met last Thursday. Events upcoming that are of note. There's a session tomorrow evening on Medicare 101 for the baby boomer. It's being hosted by Age Friendly, and Sheila Brogan is talking about that. It's from 6:30 to 8 p.m. in the public library. March 19th, there is also a session at the library from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on elder law and addressing such issues as legal and financial affairs to minimize stress and uncertainty of aging. April 30th, there is another session at the library called This Chair Rocks, which is a manifesto against ageism. It's the speaker is Ashton Applewhite, who is a renowned expert on ageism. It is being held from 7 to 8:30 p.m. again in the library. Also of note, the Knights of Columbus are having their annual St. Patrick's Day event on March 23rd, Saturday evening at Mount Carmel Church. Starts at 7 to 11. Seats are still available, and it's always a good event for everyone to come to. Great entertainment, great food, and good Guinness on tap. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, forgot something?
I forgot something really important.
Very important.
It's very important. Please join Ridgewood resident and A Case of the Blue film director Dana Glazer as he speaks about the making of his upcoming film, 6:30 to 7:30, Tuesday, March 12th at the Upper Ridgewood Tennis Club located at 915 Glenview Road. The artist talks are free and open to the public, and for more information, just email rac@ridgewoodnj.net. And Dana is a resident, and it's a really exciting opportunity for everyone to come and visit and learn more about this movie that was filmed very much in Ridgewood. A lot of Ridgewood folks involved, so please join us next Tuesday night. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Just nothing to report from committees. Just wanted to share with everyone good news. 201 Magazine's annual Best in Bergen results came out, and Ridgewood was selected for Best Downtown and Best Special Town Event for the 4th of July fireworks. I thought that was great, great accolades to receive, so very happy. So that's the end of council reports.
I just have one more thing to report. The village council is looking for volunteers for boards and committees. The ad will be on the website, so if you're interested, the deadline is March 19th. So please look at it, and if you're interested in volunteering for a board or committee, please do so.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn the special public meeting and reconvene the work session. Wait, special public meeting on the agenda.
Okay, so moved. Second.
Knudsen?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache?
Yes. Village Council, special public meeting, March 6, 2019. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule, including date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen? Here. Councilman Seaton?
Here.
Councilman Voigt?
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh? Here. Mayor Hache?
Here. I move the clerk read ordinance 3704 by title on second reading, that the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
An ordinance to amend Article...
Roll call.
I'm sorry. Knudsen?
Oh, yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache?
Yes, will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3704?
An ordinance to amend Article 8 of Chapter 156 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, food and handling establishments at Article 8.
The public hearing is now open.
Good evening. Good evening. Paul Vagianos, 280 Rivera Court. I just wanted to point out one sentence in Section D of the revised ordinance, which actually is the same as the old Section D, but may prove problematic in enforcement. And I'm going to I believe it's the third sentence in Section D, regarding the movable barrier. It says, "The movable barrier shall define the area to be used as an outdoor cafe and shall separate it from pedestrians traversing the adjacent sidewalk." The problem with this is that if you picture Daily Treat, the barrier is exactly what they're talking about here. But if you picture any of the sidewalk cafes that have tables adjacent to the curb, now you have one row of tables as opposed to a cluster of tables. And according to this, you must put a barrier between those tables and the sidewalk. I don't know that that was the intent of this statute. It's never been enforced that way, and I'm just concerned that it will be enforced that way. And as we have cars on one side by the curb, and so many of us will want to put some kind of a barrier there, if we also have to put a barrier on the sidewalk side, it will be difficult to utilize those tables because you would have a barrier on both sides. Do you see what do you understand the issue?
But I think the barrier can't be closer than 30 inches, Heather? Am I?
That's
Correct.
if they're parallel parked, that's along the curb line.
Right, so you couldn't have a barrier.
You're saying along the other side, right?
No, so the inside, the way that it's written, and we had discussed this, the way that it's written, it seems as if we're requiring a barrier now on the right-of-way in the middle of the sidewalk on both
Right.
sides.
That's it.
But I think that was lifted from the old ordinance. I don't think that it was ever really looked at.
It was never,
Yeah.
I think this was written, and I go back historically 25 years when Fratelli's
Right.
had the only real outdoor cafe in town, and it was a cluster of tables very similar to the Daily Treat tables, and of course you needed some kind of a barrier there in that regard. But this was before people started putting tables curbside. And I know that we're getting very careful about enforcement, which is fine. I just want to make sure that in enforcing this, there is no confusion that this is the intent of the council. And again, I don't want to speak for the council, but there are, if you look at, all those sidewalk cafes on, for example, Broad Street, that have maintained 52-inch walkway, many of them have tables on the curbside, but nobody has a barrier between the tables and the pedestrian walkway. So I just want to bring this to the attention of the council because I don't know that this would be a good thing.
So, just so I understand, Heather, the plans have to be submitted to the building department.
Correct.
And then the building department has to approve those plans.
That's right.
And so the interpretation of what's being discussed would certainly be understood by the building department at this time.
Right, and I don't think that the council intended to have there be a barrier along the sidewalk side, not the curb side, and there haven't been in the past, as you pointed out. So I don't believe that's the intent, and if that's the case, I think we'll continue as we have going forward, as long as the council's amenable to that.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we evidence it by the approval of the submitted plan, I think it's fine.
I mean, one of the things we can do to accommodate this is the continuance in the enforcement of the way that it's been done, but why don't we think about some wording to clear it up so that it's a little bit clearer to the average person or to very, smart gentleman like who's standing at the podium who reads it and understands it, so that's what we got to do.
Well, we do have,
Behind you, yes.
I was going to say, we do have one last amendment next week for these outdoor cafes, so Mr. Rogers, if you want to come up with some wording, we can put it into that amendment, and then it'll be incorporated.
I'll do that. Perfect.
Okay.
I think that would be terrific, and recently with renewed enforcement, which again, I have no problem with strict enforcement of this.
Right.
I think it's better for those of us who abide by the cafe ordinance when it's strictly enforced. But sometimes there have been parts of the ordinance that have been brought out, or other ordinances, that very few people are aware of, because it's being strictly enforced. So that's why this comes to my attention, even though it's always been like this in the past. So I just want to make sure, but thank you very much. I appreciate you considering this.
And thank you for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I move the public hearing be closed.
Second?
Knutson?
Yes.
Sedin?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache?
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3704 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second?
Knutson?
Yes.
Sedin?
Yes.
Voigt?
Heather, just a clarification on this. There's no dates in here as to when they're supposed to be open and closed.
That's the next
Next week?
amendment, correct.
Okay. Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache?
Yes.
Forgive me, when would we anticipate this would be adopted?
This one was adopted this evening. The new one will be adopted in April, but we're going to, whatever's in that ordinance will be allowed prior to the issuance of the, in other words, we'll issue outdoor cafe permits and we'll allow what's in the new ordinance that's being introduced next week, even though it's not finally adopted, because the council, my understanding, is in agreement with it. At least the majority is. So it will be adopted. So therefore, we will not, anything that's in that ordinance will be permitted. Even though, you can do so. Yes, you can do so. Okay.
The following resolutions, numbered 19-61 through 19-63, are to be adopted by the consent agenda with one vote by the village council. 19-61, award professional services contract, hydrogeologic consulting services for Ridgewood Water, not to exceed $167,500. 19-62, authorized settlement agreement, O'Donnell, not to exceed $16,615.90. 19-63, authorized grant application to Sustainable Jersey Food Waste Composting Pilot Program. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Knutson?
Yes.
Sedin?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache?
Yes. Motion to adjourn this special public meeting and reconvene work session.
So moved.
Second?
Knutson?
Yes.
Sedin?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hache?
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a very special presentation from a young man named Matthew Rush. He's here to share with us the details of his Eagle Scout service project, and he has already distributed to the council members the proposal and some background information on the project. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor and Council, it's my pleasure this evening to present to you Matthew Rush. Matthew is a freshman at Ridgewood High School. He is a Life Scout in Boy Scout Troop number 7. He and I have worked together on preparing this proposal for the last couple of months, and I'm quite proud of what he's to present to you this evening.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank Mayor Hache and the council for allowing me to present tonight my Eagle Scout project proposal. As Mrs. Vigos already said, I'm an aspiring Eagle Scout in Ridgewood's Troop 7, and for my Eagle project proposal, we have designed a Veterans Memorial site that we plan with your approval to put in the James Tenhove Plaza. excuse me, this memorial site will feature a chess table made out of stone and concrete with a stenciling checkerboard on top so that the individual tiles cannot be pried out by vandals. We will also be putting shrubs and hydrangeas into the adjacent soil plots next to the chess table, and in the base of the chess table we will be imprinting a bronze plaque reading "For all Ridgewood veterans," as well as a dedication date. We really wanted to create a spot where people could come and sit and enjoy a game of chess while really respecting those who fought against world terrorism and gave their lives doing so. And going off that, I really hope that you approve of this project and that all we have done to prepare it. The proposal includes a preliminary cost estimate for our materials, supplies, and tools on the second page of the booklet I handed you. We are expecting it to cost about $1,470 for the chess table, the plants, and the other materials that we plan to use. And of course, if some of these supplies are donated, the fundraising we will have to do will be less. For the project phases of the entire project, the first is obviously to submit the proposal to you and the Northern New Jersey Council. The next is to complete our fundraising efforts, as well as purchasing the chess table and plaque. We want to then plant the flowers and shrubs and have a complete cleanup of the project site to make it worthy of respecting our veterans. Following that is the dedication ceremony, where obviously you are all invited to attend just to release this site and make it open to all to use. Furthermore, one of the fundraising efforts we plan to partake in is to have a garage sale. We have already began to receive pledges from scouts, family, and friends of things they will be willing to donate for this garage sale. We will be posting information about the sale on multiple online social media sites, including Craigslist and Facebook. As an Eagle Scout, Alex Millardi did last year for his own, where he raised $900 in that one day. So we were hoping to be as successful with that, if not more successful, as soon as we are able to get approved by yourself and the Northern New Jersey Council. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to present for you here today. It's very much an honor, and it's been a great experience so far in scouting, and I really enjoy everything that's come of it, and I'm looking forward to continuing this project to its fullest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You did a great job. Great job.
Great job.
So if you have questions, I have a couple questions. Matthew, you said you're going to raise money through a garage sale, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Do you have a place to donate as well? I mean, do you have a place to donate? In other words, if someone wanted to donate money in lieu of a garage sale?
In that garage sale, we will be having a place set up for people to come and donate. We are creating flyers to announce this sale to the public, and it will be distributed through the fellow scouts and our family and friends. We will let people know about what we will be selling and how they have the opportunity to donate and what everything the project will entail as well.
Yeah, do you have a date for that, when it's going
We
to
have
occur?
the following dates. We are proposing there the first 3 weekends in April, the Saturdays to be exact. As you can see on the sheets I handed out, that is just as soon as the Northern New Jersey Council approves the project, which I will be able to send out to them as soon as I get your approval.
And where's the garage sale going to be?
The garage sale is going to be either at the Upper Ridgewood Community Church, where Troop 7 holds their meetings, or at my own house at 87 California Street.
7 California Street, okay.
Yes, and we will be acquiring a permit for that as well very soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still a good,
Questions?
still a great job.
Thank you.
No questions?
No questions, and just thank you for
Thank you.
participating, and, you know, I look forward to seeing your project completed.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to present to you all tonight.
Matthew, very impressive presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so thoughtful and thinking about honoring our veterans, and I think it sounds like a wonderful project, and at the same time, we get to beautify our plaza here, so well, thank you for that, and good luck with the rest of the
Thank you
project.
again. I appreciate it.
Okay,
I would like to start going. My son is an Eagle Scout, and I'd like to donate the first $100 to the project.
All right.
It's a great organization. It's less than 4% of everyone that joins it ever achieves the rank of Eagle Scout. It's
big deal.
Really an accomplishment.
Nice
Yeah,
job.
thank you.
So we're moving on to discussion items. The first area is Ridgewood Water. I'm going to have Rich Calby come up and help us with these various items that we have. The first one is the 2019 revised water rates and fees. There are proposed increases in Ridgewood Water volume charges and fees associated with the services provided by the utility. And we are looking to incorporate these new rates and fees as of the third quarter billing cycle. So I'll have Mr. Calby explain it in more detail.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, we were in this room last Friday. We did the initial budget presentation.
We recall.
Sandwiches and all. That was the water budget for 2019. There was a PowerPoint presentation that we went through, several questions. A full copy of that presentation is now available on the Ridgewood Water website, along with all the supporting documentation for the budget. So there's everything there that any resident or consumer would want to see about this year's budget, black and white, which is a good thing. The budget this year proposes the first volume rate increase since 2014 at 3%. That will be raising the rate from $4.68 to $4.82 for 2019. If that is approved, it will be effective with the third quarter bill this year for all Ridgewood Water consumers. That rate was necessary to meet this year's revenue requirement and the village's surplus policy that was set several years ago. In addition to the volume increase, which we didn't mention at the budget because it's a separate item, we're also proposing an increase to the new connection fee. This fee has not been changed since 2003 as far as we could look back and understand. The current fee is $1,438 per new connection. As calculated by our village auditor, the new fee should be $3,575. Just to give you an idea, that fee is supposed to be recalculated every year. It's based on the debt over all the years, so that a new connection is put on the same standing as every other user in the system. So essentially, if there's a vacant lot and they want to build a new home on it, this puts that new connection or that new home on the same standing as every other service connection in the system that's been paying for that debt for all these years. So that's why the rate is what it is. So with that, I'll take any questions you have. The ordinances are drafted and proposed to be introduced at the first public meeting this month.
Questions, Councilman Seaton?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Rich, where would the increase put us in relation to water utilities in the area and close by?
A great question. I know Mr. Voigt asked that too on Friday. I'm trying to get the chart that we had last year from Howard Woods to present that in graphic form. My belief is we're still going to be in the middle. Last year produced a document from Howard Woods that showed the top 20 utilities in New Jersey. We were smack in the middle with some very high bars to our right, being a lot of the investor-owned utilities. With this increase, we're still going to be there because they're all proposing big increases for this year. But as soon as I have that, I'll bring that forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so this increase is only to generate the revenue required. Is that how I'm understanding that?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then on those connection fees, do you want to go over how you calculate that?
I'll try. I might need Mr. Rooney to come up here. But we procured the services of the village auditor. They had to go back and look at the audits and the budgets back to 2003.
Okay.
Add up all the total capital and then subtract from that any gifts or grants that were provided to the village or the water utility from that, and then they divide that sum by the total number of equivalent dwelling units that are in the system. What that means is residential units are our base unit, but there's several commercial and industrial units in our system. So we put them all on the same basis as a residential unit, so that we have one unit that we could equate for that number.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm good.
I just have one question. It says actual cost of service plus 20% plus 35.75.
Yes.
So the cost of service is the cost of service for whatever,
The physical pipe and appurtenances that we have to provide to the contractor in most cases, and then any labor we have to provide to make that connection.
plus any costs that the individual, the ratepayer, would pay to their own plumber, let's say, to prep and remove or do anything like that.
Correct.
So that's outside of this cost?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, that's all I had.
No questions? No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is awarding a change order. This is for engineering services for the Ames Tank rehabilitation. This change order number 1 is going to be awarded to the original contract, DJ Agarian and Associates out of Fairfield, New Jersey. And it's required for additional engineering charges, construction, administration, and inspection resulting from contractor schedule delays, and these charges will be actually deducted from the contractor's payment. The next one is a change order for professional services for engineering services for the Southside Reservoir improvements. Again, being awarded to the original contractor, which is DJ Agarian and Associates, in the amount of $8,000. And it also extends the contract completion date to March 30th, 2019. Again, it's required for additional engineering charges, construction, administration, inspection, resulting from contractor schedule delays, and the charges will be deducted from the contractor's payment.
So just, is the work done yet?
The both tanks are full and back in operation, but there's several small items that have to be completed. So what had happened, they missed the initial completion date of January 15th. And as a result of that, our consultant had to expend extra time in the field.
Understood.
So we wanted to make sure that was covered by the contractor. But both tanks are fully operational.
But to date, the work is not 100% complete?
Correct.
That's okay.
Yep.
Good, thank you. When do we anticipate it being 100% complete?
By the end of this month.
Okay,
Yep.
good, thank you.
Okay, last month, the council adopted a resolution for change order number 3 for distribution improvements and the Lakeview extension study. The resolution was approved with funds being appropriated out of the water department operating budget. It's actually out of the capital budget, so we're going to re-adopt the resolution with the proper notification of the funding coming out of the capital budget. Our next section of discussion will be on parking. We have the proposed ordinance to restrict parking on Sherman Place. I'll ask Chris Redesauer, our engineer, to come up at this time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Recently, actually it's been several months, residents from Sherman Place have contacted us seeking relief from some of the parking and traffic issues on the north portion of Sherman Place, which is basically from Washington Place northward to its dead-end terminus. Sherman Place at that location has exiting traffic from the office building that fronts on 88 West Ridgewood Avenue. They have a permitted exit onto Sherman Place. What I've seen recently is there's a lot of traffic also going in that exit from Sherman Place. I think that's aggravating some of the conditions on the street. The ordinance I prepared for your consideration uses a technique that we've used on several other streets where the street is closed to everyone but the residents. Clinton Street is an example of it. I believe California Street and Bogart Street are other examples of it. The intent would be to close the street to northbound traffic, so traffic would not be permitted to utilize Sherman Place to enter the parking lot for 88 West Ridgewood Avenue. And that would be during the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. all days except Sundays and holidays.
Just say that one more time. They're not permitted to enter?
Yeah, traffic other than residents, which the ordinance clearly states, would not be permitted to make a turn from Washington Place to go northbound with the intent possibly of going to the parking lot for 88 West Ridgewood Avenue.
Got it, okay.
And as I mentioned, we have that already established by ordinance in the code for 3 other locations in the village.
So Chris, they're able to get to that parking lot from West Ridgewood Avenue?
Yes, they can get in from West Ridgewood Avenue. It would still allow them to exit through Sherman Place, because that's unfortunately the configuration of the parking lot. But this is intended to stop the traffic that's coming up Sherman Place, northbound on Sherman Place, seeking to get into the parking lot. And that hopefully reduce the traffic volume on the street, providing relief for the residents. I also have a restriction on parking on the west side. That's something that we had discussed in a survey of the residents. I know a resident spoke tonight and was not entirely in favor of that, but I think it can work in combination with what I just proposed, which is the first line item in the proposed ordinance before you. The second part, the last part of the ordinance is just to adjust the existing 2-hour limit from what it's in the ordinance to match what is proposed for the north end of Sherman Place.
So the way this would work, I'm following you, so the way this would work then, if northbound traffic is closed, then nobody would be able to drive on that street, nobody would be able to park on that side of the street because it would be closed?
Almost. It's closed to everyone but the residents who live there.
Right. So
and that's the specific language we have in the code. So if somebody intended to go north on Sherman Place from Washington to access 88 West Ridgewood Avenue, that would be a violation.
Okay, right, so unless it was a resident, anybody off the street couldn't do that, and then they couldn't see that, oh, well, you know, this side of the street is closed, and they wouldn't be able to shift over to the other side of the street and then park and walk up to the office if they were trying to do that, because then parking would be restricted on the other side.
Yes, parking would be restricted on the west side, and if they made the turn in there, I mean, it would probably have a do not enter sign with the caveat, the hours, similar to what we use in those other 3 locations in the village. If somebody was coming to service the homes on that section of Sherman Place, you know, a guest, a friend, or something like that, they would be permitted according to the language in the code.
Okay, thank you.
So Chris, how can you enforce this? I mean, besides just the goodwill of the person who decides to read the sign?
Well, as we all know, goodwill only goes so far. This would be a task for the police department. The parking obviously could be enforced by the parking enforcement officers. The moving vehicle violations of going up that street would have to be by the uniformed officers. Okay. And obviously we would put signage up, and then if people are ignoring the signage, the police department would have to do an enforcement action.
It just seems to me, you know, going to that parking lot behind that building, I mean, the easiest way to get there is from Washington and going into Sherman. I mean, that's the easiest way to get to that parking lot, as opposed to going from West Ridgewood Ave kind of through the property to that parking lot. I mean, it could be thought of easy. Yeah. What we also have gotten complaints of is that people use that traffic movement of going north on Sherman, cutting through the parking lot, to go to West Ridgewood Avenue. To sometimes go to West Ridgewood Avenue. Yeah. So would you make that one way then, in from West Ridgewood Avenue into? That's up to the private property owner at 88 West Ridgewood. What this does, or it intends to do, is to dissuade a motorist, as I said, from going north on Sherman from Washington Place, to try to remove that traffic stream from that street area. Thanks.
Sure.
So just, I know that some residents are here, and they had some questions for you, but maybe they can email, and you can kind of maybe walk through it with them. But on the parking prohibited certain hours, so from north on the gutter line of Washington Place, heading, so that's on that dead-end part, correct? There's no parking on which side of the street?
West side.
On the west side of the street. Okay, so I'm just looking at, it's helpful to have a map on this, so I'm just looking at my map so I understand. Okay,
And to your point, I did email with a group of the residents last night, but I did not release this ordinance because our policy is that you see it first before it goes out to the public.
so, all right. So there's on the west side, the hours, there'll be parking prohibited from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes.
That's that, okay, except Sundays and holidays. And that 225 linear feet northward, that's the entire road?
Yes, that's the combined frontage of the two lots according to the tax map.
Got it, okay. Okay. And then what was changed when you added on the other side? What's changed on that? Because I see that's added and deleted.
The deleted was, it used to be, or the current ordinance has a 2-hour parking limit from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all days except Sundays and holidays for both sides of Sherman Place. Okay, so I had to change that with eliminating the parking on the west side of Sherman Place, but still maintaining it on the portion of Sherman Place south of Washington Place.
Got it, okay.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
So, Chris, how many spaces does this entail that we would kind of do away with?
On the west side of the street?
Yeah.
I think there's room for maybe about 6 or 7 cars. Depends how tightly the individuals park.
Yeah.
In my field visits, I've seen numerous cars parked on both sides of the street. It does validate some of the concerns that the residents have expressed.
And so it's usually pretty packed there during the day, from what I recall. I mean, both sides of the street are generally full.
It can be very tight when both sides of the street are have parked vehicles, yes.
Okay, and so where do you anticipate those 6 cars going?
That's going to be the next challenge because, as we have seen many times with parking restrictions, it just kind of moves the problem to another location, and we have to address it at that location.
I'm hoping it's not further down Sherman Place. We're going to be in big trouble. Yeah.
So, Chris, could you do me, I had a resident actually called me about this before, and I just had received it earlier. Would you be good enough to just maybe map this out, and then I'll send it to that resident, and this way, you know, I'm sure she'll share it with her neighbors, and everyone will understand exactly what the rules are if they have any comment.
Okay.
I think it'd be helpful.
I'll produce a sketch that hopefully will clarify it.
Okay, good, thank you.
So, Chris, I'm I'm trying to figure out what the people from Washington are going to do. If there's going to be I'm assuming there's going to be a sign. Where's the sign, where's the instruction for those coming down Washington that they're now, it's going to be a no right turn? It's not necessarily a no right turn.
It could be a no left turn. It's a no turn.
Well, what's it going to be? Because
It's
if
gonna
they
be a do
come
not
down there,
enter.
they're going to have to flip around to leave, or they have to make a left to go out.
The signage is going to be a do not enter sign with a plate underneath with the conditions, similar to what we use in those the other three streets, Clinton, Bogart, and as I believe, California.
So the person drives down, because there's going to be a learning curve, and now they're going to be pulling into people's driveways to do a turn, because there's no other way out of Washington.
Out of Washington, I mean Sherman.
Well,
No,
there's
but
way
if you
out
can't,
of-
if you can't go from Washington onto Sherman, where are you gonna go?
You could,
Go
you
back up Washington.
can go, Washington goes from West Richard Avenue down to North Monroe, South Monroe.
Want to see the map? Is that helpful?
It goes to Monroe. It just keeps going that way.
So they're gonna be able to go, hold on.
If you, say you're on West Richard Avenue, you make a turn out to Washington, you would go around a slight bend, you come to the intersection with Sherman, there'll be a sign on your right that says, "Do not enter." You can continue going west, make a left on, or right on
If
Garfield.
it's do not enter, how are they gonna get across the road?
No, you keep going straight, it's just do not enter to not make a
They
turn.
can keep
So,
going
so,
straight.
but that's what I'm saying, so where's the sign going to be? Because,
So you can't enter here, so you have to go straight?
okay, but if you're driving this way,
Or
then,
turn left.
then there's gotta be signage on Washington that tells them they can't,
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah, right,
how
'cause
else are
they'll-
they gonna know?
Well, they're going to continue straight, and I guess at some point, what will happen is they'll learn that they can't go that direction, but they'll just have to continue straight. Or they'll wind up turning around, but they'll have to continue, in all likelihood, they'll continue straight. Because all you're doing is sending them farther up West Ridgewood Ave, right?
Well,
Well, you're
but it was-
sending them straight across,
Right.
towards GW.
They could either be going towards GW and South Monroe, or if they're
Or
heading
the opposite, right?
eastbound on Washington, they'll see the sign "Do not enter," and they have to continue around to its intersection with West Richard Ave, where they can make a left-right.
Okay, and then, so the no parking, so if it's gonna be residents, is it residents and guests? So if somebody
Yes.
has somebody come visit, it's residents and
Yes,
guests?
the specific language as even servicing company, whether it's a cleaner, a tree service, or a landscaper, they would be permitted to make that turn.
Okay.
So-
Okay, that's all I have. This is gonna be,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, I think this is gonna be a challenge, but,
Maybe when you make the map and you do the do not enter, you can send it to everyone. So send it to everyone up here, and this way, I mean, I
Yes.
think that might be helpful and for everyone else to understand where the vehicles are going.
Yeah, I'll prepare, I did not have time to prepare a cover memo on this, I will do so. I'll refer to the section in the code that has the language as to who may enter in such a do not enter street as 265-64. And I think it's the section is 265-17, if I'm correct, but I'll refer to that.
And then just a question on the original site plan for the dentist office, it's dentist office, is that what's there?
It's
Doctor's-
medical office, to my
Medical
knowledge.
office, sorry. On the original site plan approval, whenever that occurred, however long ago, was there any stipulation to go back and look at that condition? Or look back on it? Because my understanding is that everybody's just using it to kind of, they're using that as a road. The parking lot for the office is being used as just a cut-through, it's being used as a road.
That is a complaint we've gotten. I believe I had looked at the resolution, but it goes back 20, 25 years, and there was no language in it as we have with the current boards where there is such a look-back provision.
Right. And I guess we don't have any plans for any of it anymore, or do we? I mean, maybe it would be helpful just to look at the plans again and revisit that.
I can look at for the file again, but it's a relatively skimpy in comparison to what we
What
see
we do,
nowadays.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you.
So the question I had was regarding the access to the guests and service and contractors and so on. So would people be able to exit through the back of through Sherman? Can they exit the medical office? The intent is, enter. Yeah, the medical, traffic from the medical facility has to exit. Okay. And that exiting from that parking lot going south on Sherman Place to either go across the intersection with Washington or make a left, right, will be maintained.
So I just, when this came up, I have to admit, I was just thinking of the whole issue that we had with Palmender Walk and Sherman last time around. So I do want to make sure that we even over-communicate if we have to with this, and possibly thinking even inviting the residents in the area to come in and meet and kind of talk through, just to make sure that we get it right and everybody understands what's being proposed.
With the council's permission and Heather's, once I prepare
the cover memo, sketch that the deputy mayor requested, and attach that with the ordinance. I'll email out a PDF to the email group that has been in contact with me over last year's, couple of years.
If you copy me on that as well, this way, because I have probably all those same people, but maybe some additional that need to be added, but it's probably the same group that we've been communicating with for a long time.
As long as Heather doesn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, fine.
Chris,
That's fine.
can you also give that to CSAC?
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Sure.
Our next item is parking kiosks. I'll have Bob Burney, our CFO and Parking Utility Director, come up. So Deputy Mayor Newton, I know had requested some information about the parking kiosks and what kind of activity it's had, and so Mr. Roney will be going over this information with you.
Sorry for the late submission. We were doing budgets and got to put this together today. On the first page, you see the 3 areas where we put the kiosks in beginning in October of 18. To the right, you'll see the revenue that was generated with the kiosk and the revenue that was generated without the kiosk. So you have 2 in Cottage Place, and then you have 1 in North Broad Street. The 2 in Cottage Place are comparable because I can identify the coins that were collected there in the past, as well as Park Mobile, and the amount that came in through the kiosk. North Broad, however, when we collect coins on the street, they all go into one street bucket. So we can't distinguish what was collected on North Broad or on Franklin or any of those areas. They all become streets. So with that situation, I just compared what we collected from the kiosk to what I know to be in that zone, and that's Park Mobile. So you can see the increases that we had with the kiosk in those 3 areas. On page 2 is, I think it's more of an indication of the increase in revenue. If you, that's Chestnut. So Chestnut, I can identify everything that came through there. And you can see beginning in November of 17, the ability to pay with cash and credit cards, generated another $20,000 of revenue because of the kiosk, whereas before that, we only had Park Mobile that we were able to use there.
So, I have to absorb all of this first, because this is,
So Bob, a couple questions. So the first page, without kiosk and with kiosk, what time frame is that again? The first page?
This is October of 18 through January of 19.
And it's the same time frame for the year before. Is that what you're saying? For 17, it's October?
On the first page, these are the 3 areas that we did not have a kiosk before.
Oh, no, but just, so you have one column that says 2017 without kiosk and 2018 with kiosk, okay? So you're looking at the same time frames comparably?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
Good.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So, I look at this and I go, we should probably move aggressively with the rest of with the rest of this.
no, I mean, honestly, it almost seems like something's wrong when I'm looking at this. It seems to me like there's something wrong.
I think you can explain a good deal of it. I don't know if you agree, Bob, but, I mean, first of all, these numbers are just off the charts. But I would suspect that the significant improvement that we saw in Cottage Place, and we're talking about, in some cases, 465%. What I think may have happened is that during those months in 2017, we had a large number of parking spots on that lot that were designated for CBD employees that were not being used. So they were not paying for it, nobody was, so we were losing significant amount of revenue during that time, yeah. I think
Valid
that's
point.
part of it, right?
Valid point?
And I think on Broad Street, what was happening is that now, because we can enforce based on zones, not by spots, a lot of the parking charades that were happening there before are not taking place anymore. We actually have people coming in and out, and we have the volume of parking sessions that we should have had all along.
Correct.
Because these, which were, I mean, essentially employees, are not taking up those spots in the streets anymore.
Right.
Wow.
So, and I mean, obviously, a percentage of this is that capturing that lost revenue that I always consider a gift, which I left a gift for somebody today, right? So, but I would never, you know, while I agree that some of this is the obvious issues of parking charades, I mean, that number from January of 2018 on North Broad to January of 2019 is just such a big difference. I mean, maybe what we need to do is see what 2017 looked like. We don't have that January of 2017 at that location, right?
No. Well, actually, we would, without kiosks, yeah.
Wait.
We would.
No, I'm saying, well, but it's not here.
No.
No. So in other words, maybe, I mean, just because it's such a bizarre difference. And obviously, the December issue is probably less on an increase because, well, is Cottage Place's, what do we do in December for Cottage Place parking?
Did we make it, I think that's around the time we did the flex parking, wasn't it?
Right, that's when we did the flex, okay, yeah. Yeah, which was a big deal to do that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to make a comment and be John Q for a second, and this is the complaint that people are having, that they have to put more money into the kiosk. So we're actually making money off of the fact that they're, putting in extra money because they're not going to just put in. So if they're parking for 15 minutes,
They want to make sure they have 30?
Yeah, they want to make sure they have 30, so they're putting extra money in. So we're not actually, I mean, first of all, two of the numbers are exactly the same. I can't, maybe you just input that wrong.
It's a
To
possibility.
the penny, they're exactly the same, 7,359.30. So it looks like you probably just doubled that up somehow. Because I really don't think that 2 months would have the exact dollar amount. Statistically impossible. But to go from $1,000 a month to $10,000?
So one of the other things that isn't done here, which I didn't have time to do, would be look at the number of transactions to make sure that they're valid.
Yeah.
So if, we jumped 1,000%, we should have that number of transactions also increase that time.
So do the transactions match?
I don't know, I didn't go into the
Yeah, because
transactions.
that to me would be, because, that has been the complaint, that people are having to put extra money in.
Understand.
And because they're afraid they're not going to put enough in, they're still getting used to the kiosk. So, I myself, if I'm going to stay an hour, I'll put 2 hours in. So we're really making an extra hour off of me, because I don't know if I'm going to be there an hour and 5 minutes or an hour.
Yeah, but I did that when I went to church today. That's what I left for somebody behind me. I left a gift of an extra, I think it was an extra 45 minutes. I wasn't sure how long church would be. I put in, Mike was with me, $1 and maybe, I don't know, we just kept dropping dimes in because we knew we were early. And so we had maybe like an extra 45 minutes left, but I didn't hit the meter and say, give me my money back. I mean, that's,
No, but I'm
you do
saying
it
these
either way.
numbers, if the transactions are the same, then, well, and obviously we increased the
rates,
rate.
right.
Yeah,
So
I
you
was
got the
gonna say
increased
that,
rate,
too.
so,
Yeah.
There's definitely an impact in here for a rate increase.
Yeah, there's an
No doubt
yeah.
about it. What I can do is go back and look at
transaction would be what we need to look at.
So Bob, I have another question. So this looks good for the village from the parking utility standpoint. And, you know, we're looking at an increase again next year for parking rates to $1 an hour.
No, not necessarily.
Well, no, but
Yeah,
we're
not
we're
necessarily.
considering it, okay? And so what this makes me look at is saying, well, we may not need to do that. And so, I mean, based on, and it'd be really nice for us to be able to understand, in using this maybe to project, if we did this for the rest of the village, you know, central business district, what would that mean from a cash flow standpoint, so that we wouldn't have to increase the parking rates for next year?
'Cause remember,
it'd be a good exercise to understand. Yeah.
That was part of the discussion, justification when we were considering the kiosks.
Yeah.
Was what can we do today to start kind of smoothing out and start building up that reserve in cash, but also not just to build it up, but to say, hey, if we can generate enough income, and we always knew, the theory always was that we could generate your collection rates, you can increase the collection rates, but that would may even negate the necessity to have to increase anything further.
Yeah, so
maybe
that,
smooth it out a little
yeah,
bit.
so that it would be, I don't know if you can do that or not, but it'd be a really good exercise for us to understand, you know, it's 75 cents if we did this for the rest of the village kiosks, what that would mean from a cash flow standpoint in 2000, whenever we do this. And whether or not we wouldn't need to increase the parking rates, so.
But you know what? The other thing is, now that I'm thinking about it, so I pulled into North Broad and used Park Mobile. I didn't use the kiosk. So how are you going to extrapolate the transactions? Because we want to find out the transaction on the parking, not necessarily, it's going to be hard, because if I use Park Mobile, then I'm not going to have a kiosk ding.
But
If I
then you
use
just subtract the
But
But
don't
you
we,
can't.
don't we
But
see
you can't,
that?
because the Park Mobile goes, the numbers spread further than the kiosk.
But that's where the difference, for example, I know for a fact that a lot of some of the tenants in one of the buildings there were parking on the street all day. And they didn't start parking off-site until this happened. So there was no chance of anybody, whether you're paying with Park Mobile or dropping
But
quarters.
off-sites,
Into the employee lots and so on.
okay.
So there was no chance of that turnover to happen, because part of the reason why the collection rates in the kiosks are significantly higher, you know, on average 20%, is because of that turnover, right? And because the enforcement of it is done by zone, not by spots. So yeah, you might be paying with Park Mobile, or you might be dropping coins into the kiosk.
Yeah, but
It still shows that, so the addition of the kiosk in those zones is contributing. I see what you're saying. How do we get you know, down to the cent as to
yeah,
what's
because,
actually
I mean,
contributing?
this is showing a 609%, 842% increase. I mean, these,
This is
you want to buy stock in this company if this is what's really happening, seriously.
By stock in.
But I think, shouldn't we be able to get that data broken out like that? I mean, the whole system, it's all computerized, they should be able to tell us what goes where, when, and down to the penny, practically.
So for Park Mobile and for the kiosk, I get a transaction report monthly.
Right.
That tells me the number, it tells me the time the person parked there. It gives me a lot of data.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, you know, taking that data and put it into a format that you can match to coordinate with this. So I haven't had an opportunity to do that. I will take a stab at it, and in doing that, I'll also see what I could do about projecting the impact we would have if we had kiosks in other areas.
Yeah, because it would also tell you the transactions that happen on the kiosk with the app, or credit cards, or cash.
Correct.
Yeah.
Plus, remember too, we haven't had the ability to use credit cards. So with the kiosk, we picked up a convenience of letting people use that as well.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to find is that one parking spot has been paid for multiple times. That's basically, I mean, to have numbers like this, that's the only, in my opinion, that's the only way to get over 600, 800, you know, percent.
But that
So
was the
my
whole
suggestion is I
point.
come back to you with
Yeah.
massaging this into
Yeah,
what makes sense. Again, I put this through just to
Yeah.
get numbers so we can see where we are. I'll put this in a better format that you can compare it. We'll get transactions and we'll see what makes sense.
But just as an aside, sorry, Mike. Can I-
Go ahead.
Oh, but as an aside, to Bernadette's point, when she's saying that the parking spot is being used, paid for over and over and over again, but in fact, wouldn't it be fair to say that individuals are actually paying for their time parking? So it's not that it's, because you're allowed to, if you're using the meter, then you put that money in, and if you leave an hour early, you let that dollar go, or 75 cents go. But in the other, with the kiosk, you're actually paying for the parking that you're using. So if somebody decides that they're going to lose their 50 cents or 75 cents or whatever, that's their prerogative. But it doesn't mean that the next person comes and parks then for free for that time. But Bob, just on another question, what we're seeing on that Chestnut lot also is that, because we see that increasing up, when did we resolve the issue with Park Mobile and that money that was being withdrawn from our end of it?
I think it was August, somewhere around there, maybe?
Right. So that's why we're seeing that increase as well?
Yeah,
It's probably
that
because
would
we're
have
not
an impact.
Putting that bill, got it. Okay.
So let me come back to you with some, massage the analysis, and we could take a better look at it.
Go ahead, Mike, you really have something to say.
Okay, I'm good?
Good.
All right. So I've traveled down this road before, and with all the changes in rates and employee spots and non-employee spots, it's real hard to kind of nail down a very accurate number. Now, Park Mobile functions the same way the kiosk does. So I could pay with Park Mobile and put in $3 for parking, stay for 15 minutes, and then the person could pull in right behind me and pay for that spot again. So that happens with Park Mobile, and that happens with the kiosk. So that's good. You could kind of combine those numbers and say, well, basically this is sort of now the same thing. But what you would have to do is look at maybe, you couldn't, because you said you couldn't break out Broad Street by just street, but you could break out the lots by lots. So what you would have to do is find a really good control area. So maybe it's something we haven't done right now. Maybe it's the Prospect lot that could help get us this, really get this down, because Cottage Place had the employee spots that were unused for a while, and then the rates went up and they went down, and there was all kinds of fluctuations. So to really nail down an accurate number to the cent is difficult. But if you had a control area like say Prospect, where there's currently meters there now, and I guess you could use Park Mobile too. But maybe you go back a few years to before we had Park Mobile, when it was strictly meters, and then that way you could see what kind of revenue was brought in with the meters, and you could kind of compare that. If we switched over, say, Prospect Street and put in the kiosks, now you would just have the kiosks and Park Mobile. They'd relatively give you the same results. So if we did that, we'd be able to get those results now and compare those with, 2014 or 13, when it was just parking meters, and then that way you could get an accurate number. Or if there was like another control area in Ridgewood where you could say it was all meters, and then we added Park Mobile, and then we added the kiosks, but then Park Mobile and kiosks are kind of function the same way. You could compare it with the past when it was just parking meters. And that way you could get it. So you have to kind of jump through a couple hoops to do it because of all the recent changes that have gone on,
Right.
But it's doable.
Yeah.
Just had a question, because something else came to mind, and I'm going to just talk to the village manager about it offline, but just a quick question. How quickly how fast could we transition to kiosks throughout?
Throughout?
Get rid of all meters.
I know the lots, well, I shouldn't say this. I'd have to check with Signal as to what their availability is to remove meters.
Mm-hmm.
For the kiosk standpoint, I could probably have them in here in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But remember, in the budget, we allocated how many? 10. I don't know if it probably doesn't do everything. Maybe not some of the streets. It would do all the lots.
I mean, we know we can do the lots entirely. And we talked about doing, changing the meters at Van Ness, just for coin purposes. But I could certainly look and see what the needs would be. Matter of fact, I have a call with Calais and Epic to talk about how we're going to do the garage. And at that time, we can ask them what their configuration would be as to the need for the village, as to how many in total they would need.
Do you know, the other question would be, because this is just so fascinating, can we also, let me just see, this asterisk. When we look at that North Broad kiosk, and the North Broad January from 2018 without, and then 2019 with, on the without, can we get the count on meter heads that were there, that were included in? I think it would be helpful to have the count on the meter heads on the North Broad, where we did without, and just for comparison, on the Cottage Annex, also a meter count, the zone 4326, yeah, I think we would be helpful to have the annex meter count as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Bob, one of the things when you look in the second sheet, when it has all the details for Chestnut Street lot, the numbers are less jarring, right? You have 26% total 1 year, and then you have in the months where when we implemented the kiosks, 49, 53, and 45%. Great numbers, but obviously not as significant as the ones on the first page. I would imagine that's because Chestnut Street was always a app-based or kiosk-based system. So even though it was Park Mobile only, and that was a 26% increase, which is great. When we go to the kiosk, the collection rates also increase significantly on that. But why would that be? I don't
Well, people who go there, people that don't have the app, and I'm not saying there's a lot, but they would be more inclined now to go there because they can pay cash or they can pay with a credit card. And a lot of them, again, are more motivated to pay with credit cards if they get points on their card or something like that. They get no benefit other than convenience to pay with Park Mobile. So, that may be the...
So the access has increased the demand for that, essentially?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I could attest to that.
The different options that you have to pay. Yeah.
No, I could definitely attest to that, because when Chestnut Street was all Park Mobile, I never parked there. I wouldn't even look at it. Now, we got the kiosk, I've parked there several times going downtown.
Yeah, when I go up there, certain times of the day, I can't find a spot, whereas before the kiosk, I never had a problem.
And then I would also imagine that if we look at these numbers a year from now, the increases will be obviously more normalized, and you're probably going to see more of a 20 to 26%.
Most likely.
Right, yeah. I mean, establishing a new sort of baseline in terms of collections.
Right. We have an enormous amount of data that comes from both, the kiosk and Park Mobile. It's a matter of putting into something that makes sense, because a lot of what you get from Park Mobile has to be reformatted, put into, because they'll give you transactions in order. So now if you want to do it and time. So if you want to do it by zone, you have to resort that into all these different buckets. And it's something we're working on, trying to get a regular format going every month. But we'll get some more data that proves that.
And I would suggest to, like I say, use Prospect Street, that parking lot,
good idea.
as like a control area, because there's been so many changes on Cottage Street, and if you can't break out street by street, I mean, obviously with the addition of kiosks, you're going to see an increase in revenue because of the time left on that somebody else can't use.
To Bernie's point, she said that some people overpay. It'd be nice to know, and I think the way you can do that, obviously, is that, you have a space that's, 14 hours now? It's 14 hours total for that? It's 9 to...
11 hours.
I'm sorry.
11, I was like, wait a minute.
I didn't want to... So 11 hours, so 11 times 75 cents. You could look at each space and say, are we making more than 11 times 75? And and if we are, then people are overpaying for it, and that would be interesting to know.
Yeah,
if they are.
But again,
I mean, that was
you're
the-
not.
And that's
No, you're
that's
not,
okay.
some people are overpaying, but then conversely, if you didn't have that, other people would be underpaying or not paying.
But
So
it's-
then
but
they
it's-
get a
but
ticket.
it's just- it's interesting to find-
They don't get a ticket because they're on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
They're parking on
No,
somebody else's dime.
I get it, but it'd be interesting to know whether people aren't really overpaying. I mean,
No, I get it, I get it, I
That's easy enough
agree.
to find out,
But-
yeah.
Right. Hey,
No, because there aren't numbered spaces. So it doesn't, so when you pull in,
It's by the license plate?
it's by the license plate.
And zone.
So,
Oh,
and the
okay.
zone.
Yeah.
So I could
Oh,
have
you're right.
my CBD pass if I'm in a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm in Chestnut and I have my CBD pass, I'm not going to fall into either of those two categories.
You're right.
Because, so we'd have to pull out how many commuter tags are in these lots, which cuts down on the spaces, which makes these numbers even more.
But you can still do it,
Interesting,
but you can
because-
still do it in the aggregate, though. You know the number of spaces, and then you know how much you're getting per day, and you could say, yeah, they are overpaying in that particular area. That's easy
Yeah.
enough to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to Mike's point, Prospect's probably the only one that has consistency to it. Every other zone has something unique about it. So we'll try that. It's a good idea.
How soon can we get the meter count on that Broad Street and the annex on North Broad?
Probably early next week. I think Jimmy's out till Monday, so
Okay.
he has those numbers readily available.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
while he's here, could we just jump to 12C9? There's no backup for it. This is a review of the resolution and related documents to introduce the 2019 budget. So as you know, we're going to introduce the budget next week, March 13th, with a public hearing and adoption scheduled for April 10th, so.
So that will be the culmination of the meetings that we've had so far and up through Friday. We'll also we'll introduce the capital ordinance for everything that's been approved. There will be a resolution for a temporary amendment to the capital budget because we don't have one in place yet. And then there'll also be a cap ordinance, which is consistent with every other year where we identify what the cap limitation is going forward. So those are the documents that you'll be getting for next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, and if we could, 12E1, which is a review of Kings Pond Park improvements. There may be some people here tonight, I'm not sure, but they did indicate they may be here this evening or may be watching this evening, and so they don't have to wait until a later hour. I'll have Nancy Bigos and Chris Redesauser come up. We did this last fall when we showed the council what we were going to apply for grant funding through the county. But we also met with the Lakeview residents, who are the residents who are most affected by this development, and we thought it might be a good idea to bring it back again, because I know some neighboring residents on streets that are adjacent to this property wanted to know what was going on. So at this point, we'll have Nancy Bigos and Chris Redesauser kind of walk us through as they did about 6 months ago.
Good evening, Mayor and Council again. Good news on this project. We've gotten our DEP permit for the flood hazard area individual permit. We still have a few minor permits to get, but this was a major hurdle for us to dredging Kings Pond. The permit is quite lengthy. It's about 6 pages, has a heck of a lot of conditions that we have to meet to stay compliant. Among the key ones is where any dredge material will go. We have to notify the DEP. It has to be a DEP-approved facility or location. We have to do some testing on the material to see if there's any contamination. That may be an interesting problem because 2 years ago we had a Northwest Bergen wastewater pump station overflow. It probably dumped about 10 million gallons of effluent into the pond.
So, Chris, what does it mean if it's contaminated? It means we have to do more or less, or?
Let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, let's see what the laboratory results determine, what it is, and where the DEP feels the material is acceptable to go to. There's a lot of different contaminants out there. There's a lot of set standards. There's direct contact, residential direct contact, non-residential contact, so
I
those
hope it's not
terms.
PFOA.
What's that?
I say, I hope it's not PFOA.
Oh, that's actually the water company's problem, not mine. So,
Sorry.
Other than that, Nancy has also some updates on this.
So what I want to share with you is that you know that the village has been most fortunate in the past in regards to our funding mechanism with the Bergen County Open Space Trust Fund and also New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres. In using this information and using this funding mechanism, the village within the last few years has been really fortunate to be able to purchase major park properties and also develop, and as we're looking at this project, redevelop Kings Pond Park. You know, just to refresh your memory a little bit, that this was brought to the attention, this redevelopment was brought to the attention by some of the neighbors in that area. They felt that the area was neglected, that we needed to be able to put in some park boundaries, enhance the park property, and just to focus some attention to a restoration or a redesign of this incredible property that the village of Ridgewood has and is really just sitting. So we have considered many variables when it comes to park design. You know, you look at the amenities that you have, the property, the topography, and then you start to think about your use and how to best design the park for the use that you have. So always we try to marry active and passive recreation, but then you start to think about the population, your parking, safety, accessibility, noise, flow of pedestrians, the space that you have, and then again prioritize all of that according to your funding mechanism. So we are currently halfway between our first phase that we shared when we met with some of the residents in the area, Heather, Chris, and myself, back in early May. So that was basically when you look at it, we're doing the utility work right now. We're doing the studies, we're doing the investigation. So that would be that we've conferred with an ecologist from Rutgers University. We are looking to have the brook dredged. Chris and Jovan and his team have worked on completing and submitting the DEP application. We have studied the eradication of invasives. The Japanese knotweed, as you know, was a major problem up there. Walking with Jeannie Epiphan, our ecologist, we have also been able to identify some grasses, some wild ivy, some roses, and there are others. So these are things that are not indigenous to this area and really disrupt the habitat, the ecological habitat, so we'll be looking at those. And then hopefully in the spring, we'll be able to move forward through the engineering division and start with those actual boundaries of the park. You know, the area has been eroded with the constant traffic, so we are looking to be able to put in that curbing, some runoff swales, excavation and repavement of the street, the 2 parking lots, and it will begin to transform itself into a designated park. There will be 2 parking lots in the area. Each of them will hold just 8 parking spaces, and one of those at each location will be ADA compliant. We also have used our arborists to come in and do a complete tree evaluation, looking at the structure of the trees. And one of the important parts of that was identifying the fact that the willows that were there are invasive to that area. Super shallow roots, really thin wood. They were old and decrepit and a hazard. So in being able to move forward for safety, those were the first things that came down. So we're comfortable with where we are with phase one. We will hopefully be able to move forward and accomplish a great deal once the weather breaks, and be able to file for our Bergen County Open Space Grant. This is the first phase of that grant.
Not right now, thank you.
No, I just, do we have this up on our website yet? It's probably helpful to have
Yeah, I
that.
don't think we do, but we will put it up.
You want a copy of the permit?
No, the
Plan?
design.
Oh, okay.
The design, and I think that it's important, on social media, actually, when those trees came down, there was quite the uproar, and it took a little while to start to explain to people that they were invasive, and they actually created more problems than benefit. So I think it's helpful to have any information we can add to the website, just so people understand that this is a positive moving forward. And I mean, a tremendous amount of effort has gone into this, and I think it will be beautiful, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to state that Nancy and I have been out at the site a few times, and we've encountered residents. They're thrilled that the willows are down. They're absolutely thrilled. They said it looks so much better, and it is not as much of a danger anymore. So they are actually very happy, the ones we've encountered.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so now we'll go back to our regularly scheduled agenda. We're up to 12C1, the tonnage grant resolution. This is an annual resolution which allows us to apply for a recycling tonnage grant through the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The grants we receive are used for recycling purposes. The next one is award of contract, installation, repair, and service of various equipment. It's for police vehicles, fire, and emergency services department as well. Bids were received last year in May, and one bid package was received. The sole bidder was Regional Communications of Paramus, New Jersey. The contract permitted renewal for a second year upon the agreement of all parties, and so the recommendation is to award the bid for the second year to Regional Communications. Again, this is for furnishing, delivering, maintenance of emergency equipment, radios, vehicle computer systems, and other listed patrol equipment for police, fire, and emergency services. The next item is awarding the second year of a contract for police vehicle lease maintenance program. As you know, we do lease vehicles through Enterprise, and this has been very beneficial. This is to lease 5 administrative vehicles and detective cars, and also the maintenance of 1 patrol Tahoe. This is for a total cost not to exceed $30,000. We found this to be very cost effective and efficient, and would like to continue with that. The next is awarding the contract for the concession refreshment service at Graydon Pool. They went out for bids in February. There was one sole bidder, and that was from Michael Sims of Melsworth Foods of Ramsey, New Jersey. He actually has been the cafe, Water's Edge Cafe provider for the last 4 years, and excellent service with many patron compliments received. So they recommended the award for that to Melsworth Foods, and it's for an amount $9,500 that they are paying us. The next item is furnishing and delivering of cured-in-place pipelining services at the Demorest Pump Station and Glidden Park storm sewer lines. As you may recall, we did have a failure of the Demorest Pump Station. It was due to inflow and infiltration issue with the pipeline leading to the station. It necessitated an emergency bypass of the pump station. So, and then the second portion of the work is to assist Ridgewood Water Company at the Linwood well currently being re-drilled. So there was one bid received from North American Pipeline Services in Freehold, New Jersey. The quote is for $176,248.20. This is being paid out of a capital account and also from the water account. The next item is award contract under state contract for various computer equipment for MIS. This will be the purchase of servers and replacement of desktops. The servers for the ESRI project, which is GIS and mapping for the village as well as Ridgewood Water. There'll be some ruggedized laptops and also which will be used by water technicians in the field, and then also to replace some desktops in various offices throughout the village. The next item is good news. This is to award a contract for the senior bus purchase. As you know, our bus is getting older and it does break down more than it used to. It's been maintained very well by our bus driver and by our fleet services. However, it is time for us to purchase a new one. We did receive 2 bids. The apparent low bid was received from Alliance Bus of Carlstadt with a quote of $64,480, and the second low bidder was Roar Enterprises of Mount Holly, New Jersey, with a quote of $65,030. Both bidders submitted complete bid packages. However, each bidder took exceptions. Roar, which is the second lowest bidder, took one exception for the time of delivery. We had asked for a 90-day delivery, 90 calendar days, and they can supply the bus in 135 calendar days. Alliance took a number of exceptions to the technical specifications of the bid document. And then in reviewing the Alliance bus exceptions, who was a apparent low bidder, it appears their bus is of a lesser quality than the one specified in the bid and met by Roar. A key area of exception is in the level of safety testing the Roar bus is subject to versus the Alliance bus. The Alliance bus has smaller windows, a lesser method of corrosion protection, less insulation, and a slightly higher step to get into the bus. Again, this is our bus which services our senior citizens, and so anything that's going to make it easier for them to get in and not more difficult is appreciated. So subject to Mr. Rogers' concurrence, Mr. Redesauer is recommending the award of the bid to the second lowest bidder, Royal Best Sales, because they present less exceptions to the bid and they better meet the intent of the bid documents. And again, the only exception for Royal was the length and time for the delivery by 45 days.
So Heather, once the order's placed, it's 4 months approximately till we...
It'll be 135 days, right?
Okay. So we'll...
Calendar days.
Yeah, so that'll be, I'm assuming this will be next week that we'll go ahead and say, yeah?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we can issue the contract, and once the contract's issued, then the order would be placed.
Like July? Yeah?
It's calendar days, so I'm just trying to figure out calendar days.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
July.
approximately July, August, probably.
Okay. And these are built to order, right? I mean, so you place the order and then they kind of build it to your specs, is that what?
Right, we have specs and they're
Yeah,
going to
okay.
comply with the specs.
Okay, got it.
It's a 12-passenger, 2-wheelchair passenger bus. And that's the basics, and then there are additional things within the specs.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The next is the awarding contract for outsourcing yard waste. I'll have Mr. Redesauer come up at this time.
Did we have backup for this?
We don't have backup.
Good evening again. My apologies, I didn't have time to provide a detailed memo and package as you're customarily used to seeing. The village bid out yard waste collection services. We did this for a number of reasons. One, see what it costs, and then have the ability to compare it to what our costs, the village's costs are to provide that service. We bid it out, as I had mentioned a little bit in our budget hearings, twofold. One, pick up the yard waste, grass clippings, leaves, branches, and twigs from, I think, the middle of April for 27 weeks till about October 15th. And the second part of the bid was to pick up containerized yard waste, which would include leaves in biodegradable paper bags, curbside from after October 16th to the end of December. That's something that people seem to be in favor of, we see, because they, if they want to clean up their yard and the next pickup schedule is like a week and a half away, they want to be able to get their leaves picked up, and the intent would be to have them collected once a week. We had 3 plant holders. We've got one responding bidder from JSI Galaxy Carting. They quoted us for both those 2 services $544,000. In looking at the village's expenses, our labor runs about $114,000 a year, repairs are $30,000, fuel is roughly $18,000, and this year we're looking at tipping fees for disposing of the grass clippings going up. In 2018, they were just a hair under $40,000. In talking to the street division, they anticipate them just going past $100,000. Total for tipping fees. So our total operating cost is roughly around $270,000 a year, and we also had asked for, in the capital budget, for an additional sanitation truck, and I think if I recall that was around the $200,000, $300,000 range. So if you add the sanitation truck in, we're pretty much at what we were quoted from JSI Galaxy.
So but we'll have the we're purchasing that, so we'll have the sanitation truck once we buy it till, for the next 20 years.
Yeah, one's an unfiled, and it's a capital expense, correct?
Correct.
I wish it well to last 20 years, but I'm not always that optimistic.
Well, I mean, it's not every year though, so I mean, my point is their total cost is $544,000 to outsource it. Mm-hmm. Our annual cost is $270,000.
Approximately, yes.
Right. So then it wouldn't make sense to do that, right?
That's the decision I leave in your hands.
Oh, okay.
I always remember it kind of is reminiscent of the leaf collection. So when we outsource the leaf collection in one section,
what we currently do is we have a vendor that picks up the leaves in one section of the village, and last year it didn't always work that well.
Yeah, not only did it not work well, we wound up paying like considerably more than we had started at, right? My recollection? We had bid it out. Last
year we had to bid it out again because the previous contract had lapsed. And the cost did go up, but I think it only went up $4,000 or $5,000, if I recall.
It's gone up every year. I mean, the first year, I think they didn't know what the actual work was, and now I think they understand what it is, and so it does go up each year.
Right.
Right, there was a big jump, I remember,
from
the first year to the second year, but that was the reason, because they bid down, figured, there's X amount of work, and they realized how much it was, so when they, replied, they upped their cost to...
So I mean, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me to outsource, so, I mean, I think we should just, my opinion is we should just continue as where we are, where status.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The next one is next one is award of contract maintenance of irrigation systems and water fountain. This is for our Parks and Recreation Department. They accepted proposals. 4 submissions were received, and After talking with the staff who work with this contractor, it's recommended that the contract be awarded to Greenway Irrigation out of Midland Park, New Jersey. The previous contractor we had, it was the consensus of the staff is they did not provide quality service. They didn't have quite the technical knowledge, and constant direction was required from village employees to get the work completed satisfactorily. And at times, we waited several days for a technician to respond. So we're hopeful that this new company that's perhaps a little bit more local will provide us better service.
So I actually have a question on this.
Okay.
Maybe
Nancy, if you could come
maybe
up.
Nancy. And then while I'm waiting for Nancy, Chris, would you be good enough to send us that packet that we didn't get for tonight on the yard waste outsourcing? Yes. Okay, good, thank you. Hello again.
Hello.
Nancy, I was just interested, I see that the TANs we had a problem with, that wasn't exactly what we expected, but then I see this chart in front of me, A, B, C, D, TANs is D, and I'm looking at A and B, which is sprinkler guy irrigation and then Greenway irrigation, and I just was curious to know how you determined that Greenway irrigation was better than sprinkler guy, because it just seemed to me that the sprinkler guy pricing was in many instances less than Greenway.
I have to be honest with you, Deputy Mayor, and let you know that I did consult my staff on this. These are the guys that work directly with the irrigation systems. Probably within the last 12 years, we've probably used about 10 different vendors. And when you do work with these guys on a daily basis, you get to know the pros and cons, their level of expertise, the quality of service that they provide. So it was working with my staff where the recommendation came forward was to go with Greenway Irrigation. Based on their reputation, the numbers of employees they have, the response time is really paramount for us, because one of these sprinkler heads is damaged for whatever reason. We need somebody there right away. It's a violation to have the sprays going off. It took TANs sometimes days to report to us.
TANs, but did the village ever work with the Sprinkler Guy Irrigation LLC? Have we ever utilized that service? Has the village ever contracted with the Sprinkler Guy Irrigation?
No, we have not.
So we're basing a decision, so what is the value of the total contract for this? I mean, what is the average value of the work that's going to be done? The total amount?
It's between $17,000 and $19,000.
Okay. So,
and we really don't know, because the variables would be weather permitting, use of the field, length of the equipment, response time. The variables really enter into this, which is why we put a guesstimate together between the 17 and the 19.
So Nancy, just a question. I mean, it does look like, one's less expensive than the other, but I'm assuming in aggregate, they're all about the same?
Very close, very close.
Okay. Because when you look at all the stuff that they need to be done, they're probably pretty similar to, yeah.
Quite frankly, it was really based on reputation, previous experience, and references from within the field itself.
Okay. Thank you.
So when you say reference, and I know that maybe where it's in aggregate, maybe it's very close, but still the difference is pretty significant when I'm looking at it. And I'm just wondering, did we see the references, the recommendations, the references you're talking about? Did we get copies of those? How do we?
No, it was all telephone conversation.
Phone conversation.
It may be that I may need to talk to Nancy about this in the week between now and next week before a resolution is there.
Yeah.
Just to go through this to be sure about where this falls into the bidding process. So if we can just take care of that, we'll talk during this week.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the next one is accepting a donation for repair of a stone wall at the entrance to Citizens Park. As you may recall, on New Year's Eve 2018, a car went from Lincoln Avenue straight through the sign and the stone wall at Citizens Park. This project entails the rebuilding of the stone wall at the park entrance, and it is being donated by Horizon Landscape Company of Wyckoff, New Jersey. The project is estimated at $1,500. Horizon Landscaping Company does not have any applications before any boards or committees, and I think we're very fortunate to have this potential donation, and so I just need the council to say that they are in favor of accepting it.
Heather, why isn't their insurance paying for it?
Right, that was
The person who drove into the wall.
I mean, I can look into if we subrogated to see, if we went to that insurance company to replace the wall. I have to check with the person in the clerk's office who does those claims.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they're donating, but I would think if somebody drove into a wall, they'd be responsible to repair it for the village.
Well, to
Come on up,
segregate would
come on up. The driver was uninsured.
Driver was uninsured.
So I
Well,
guess
okay,
it's-
but, so just as a question, if the driver is uninsured, then do we have an action against the driver? Because, I mean, I get that it's a gift and it's nice, but I'm just kind
I'm
of,
sure we do, but if they're uninsured, they may have no money that we can collect from them. I think we'll look into it, but honestly, if we're getting this donated free of
right, no, I
charge.
get it, I get it. It's a very nice gift, it's beautiful.
So if we cannot get money from the person who was driving the vehicle, you're willing to accept this gift?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. The next one is authorizing an execution of an NJDEP treatment works approval for 275 North Murray Avenue. The residents at this location had a failing septic system. They were required to make a connection to the village's sanitary sewer collection system. It entailed construction of a lateral in North Murray Avenue to the nearest receiving manhole past several adjoining properties. The lateral was constructed at the residents' cost. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has deemed that this lateral requires a treatment works approval, and so Chris Radisauer, our village engineer, needs authorization to prepare and sign the various treatment works approval permit applications for this connection.
Who paid for the road to be, I mean, if we had to go through the road, I take it, no?
I know a little bit about it. I'll save Chris the walk. This line was put in by a private party, one of the adjacent property owners.
Right.
So we haven't spent any money on it as yet.
Okay.
But in order to accept it, there are 3 or 4 other property owners that are down in that section of North Murray that all need, they're all on septic right now, and they need eventual sewer hookup, so this is kind of a precondition to working that through.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, the next item is a proposed sidewalk closure on South Broad Street. This is in the area of Garden Homes between Leroy Place and Passaic Street. They're requesting the closure to protect pedestrians as they perform footing and foundation construction to the property line. They have a pedestrian rerouting plan along with signage. Mr. Radisauer has reviewed the plan and he finds it acceptable. The anticipated duration of the sidewalk closure is 3 to 4 months as the work proceeds. So this is just to make you aware of it and allow this to occur.
So the pedestrians are just going to cross at their own risk then, right? Is that correct?
The other side of the street.
Yeah.
Right, over
Okay.
to the other
Okay.
side, correct.
That's fine.
Okay, the last item is a review of next week's public meeting agenda. We have proclamations for proclaiming March Red Cross Month, proclaiming March Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and National Poison Prevention Week during the month of March. We have the budget message next week, as well as approving it and setting April 10th as the date for the public hearing. We have introduction of ordinances for Ridgewood Water, the water service connections, and the fees for Ridgewood Water utility. We have Ridgewood Water resolutions, awarding a sole source contract for corrosion control inhibitor, awarding contract under National Joint Powers Alliance program, purchase a backhoe loader, authorize change order for the SCADA system software, authorize a change order for professional services for the Ames Tank rehabilitation, authorizing a change order for professional services for Southside Reservoir improvements, authorizing a change order for distribution improvements and Lakeview Extension study. Ordinances for introduction include amending Chapter 265, vehicles and traffic, parking in all parking lots in the Central Business District and at the train station after 3 o'clock p.m. Amend Chapter 244, smoking, which is the cannabis oil without the THC and other products without the THC. Amending Chapter 186, landscapers and landscaping services. Amending Chapter 145, fees for landscapers and landscaping services. Amend Chapter 156, food and food handling establishments, outdoor cafes. These are the additional amendments, which should finish our amendments for this year, I hope. Amend Chapter 265, vehicles and traffic, parking restrictions on Sherman Place. Public hearing of ordinances, 3704 was actually adopted this evening. 3705 is amend Chapter 145, fees, significant sewer discharge fees, amend Chapter 133 for refuse containers, and amend Chapter 145 for the fees for refuse containers. This is on private property. We have resolutions to endorse submission of the recycling tonnage grant, Title 59 approval, and award partial contract for resurfacing and repair of various village streets, Title 59 approval, and award of contract for cured in place pipe lining services for the Demers Pump Station and Graydon Park Storm Sewer Line. Title 59 approval and award of contract for concession refreshment services at Graydon Pool. Title 59 approval and award of contract for installation, service, and repair for police, fire, and emergency services vehicles and radios. Title 59 approval and award of contract for the senior bus. Title 59 approval, leasing and award of contract for leasing and maintenance of police vehicles. Award contract under state contract for various computer equipment for Ridgewood Water and IT Department. Award professional services contract to upgrade and maintain the SCADA system for the Water Pollution Control Facility. Authorizing a change order for the Village Hall HVAC system. Award emergency contract Demers Pump Station. And award emergency contract Andover Pump Station. Approve the berm design for Shedlow Park property. Approve the patio and parking lot design for Shedlow Park property. Those might be one resolution. Accept donation for the stone wall at Citizens Park. Approve the Eagle Scout project for the stone chess table for all veterans on the James Stenhouse Plaza. Appoint member to Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board. We have Title 59 and approve a contract for maintenance of irrigation systems and water fountains. Mr. Rogers and Nancy Biggers are going to discuss that further. And then authorizing the preparation and execution of a treatment works approval for 275 North Murray Avenue. Does anyone want any of those off of the consent agenda? No, thanks.
Okay, we'll go back to public comments, not to exceed 5 minutes per person.
One at a time.
Are you together?
I'm not
Go ahead.
together.
Oh, okay, so yeah. Name and address, please.
Hi, Fran Lotion Terso. I live at 354 McKinley Place, which is right outside the entrance to the Mountain Avenue entrance to the park. I'm really glad to see that the park is getting attention, especially the invasive species. So that's really good progress. But I hope that everyone knows that that's just one side of the park. It's a big park, and the main entrance is really right in front of my house to the other side of the park. So when we address the invasive species, you really have to look at it as a whole and fix it throughout the park, not just on one side, because it does cross and it comes up actually right into the entrance to the McKinley Place entrance. So before you add a playground or do any other, additions to it, I really think that the priority should be making sure that the foundation of the park and the natural habitat really is intact. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Yeah, just after I had heard from, I guess, Chris's...
Please give your name and address, please.
After I had heard Chris's remarks, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Thanks again for letting me speak. The majority of the traffic you can't hear me?
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tracy Tozzi, 17 Sherman Place. The majority of the traffic comes from the doctor's office and spills over onto Sherman Place. My husband and I have owned the property for 18 years now, and we've seen it get progressively worse throughout that time. People coming from the doctor's office will not see that restriction that they talked about, residents only, because they'll be leaving the doctor's office and they'll see parking on the other side, they'll turn around and they'll park. So only people coming in from Washington Place will see that restriction for the residents. People coming from the doctor's office will make U-turns going out of the doctor's office, make the U-turn, go on the other side, and then once they park on the east side, when they leave, they have nowhere else to go but to make another U-turn to leave. So they'll be making two U-turns, one to park and another U-turn to exit the street. I don't know how much you care about it, but a lot of the people that go to that office, they try to avoid paying the parking on West Ridgewood Avenue because it's free to park on Sherman Place. So that just encourages them to park on Sherman Place and not pay for the parking on West Ridgewood Avenue. The other thing is you could keep parking on both sides. It's just that the really bad part is the funneling of the traffic that hits both 22 Sherman Place and 17, which is my home. So if they wanted to keep parking on both sides and push it back away from where the dentist's office, that would alleviate that bottlenecking and the back and forth that causes so much trouble for the two, especially the two houses at the very end, getting in and out of our driveway. I mean, I could show it to you another time, but I do have it on Google Maps. You can see I have very little space coming out of my driveway from the sign that says no parking from here to corner. If they make no parking on that one side, I'm afraid that people are it's going to exacerbate my side, and they'll even park close to where I can't even get out of my driveway. So I'm really very much not in favor of one side, the west side, having no parking. There's two homes that I know don't want it to be that way. I don't know what the other two are, but there's only 4 homes on that block. So to make it no parking on that one side would make it an undue burden on the other 2 people. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bill Bond, 335 Kensington Drive, 15-year resident of the village. I'm here as a representative of the Ridgewood Baseball Softball Association regarding batting cages at Veterans Field. So many of you may be aware that the cages were taken down last fall due primarily they had exceeded their use of life and they were deteriorating and proposed a safety hazard. So I was tasked with coming up with a new design proposal, and I met first with Chris Ruddishauser to discuss the project. Nancy Bigos was also very instrumental in giving us guidance. We met with the Park and Recreation Committee, which also provided guidance and comments and asked questions. And then we met with the Fields Committee earlier this week. And in each case, we were granted their approval. I think it'd be appropriate to make you aware of that. And just to make the citizens aware, the design will actually be enlarged slightly from what was the existing cages, but actually use essentially the same footprint, but be narrower, so provide more of a passageway behind it between the cages and the river. It would be more aesthetically pleasing due to the design and would be safer. We anticipate that we would have 3 actual hitting areas, which would increase the utilization both by the girls' softball team at the high school, boys' baseball, and then obviously all of the residents who would use it and youths. We do not really have enough batting cages given the people that are in the program. Most towns would have 6 or 8 cages. We currently only have 3. This will increase it to allow 4 hitting areas. And it is being done at the full cost being borne by the RBSA, and then we look to move to getting the appropriate building permits as the next phase, and hopefully would have them installed in the coming weeks. Obviously, time being of the essence.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have to adopt that, accept that by resolution?
Well, since it's a donation, I would think so.
I would think so too. So maybe we need to get a copy of the plan and then draft a resolution. So, because we have to appropriately accept this thoughtful gift of it.
I mean, I'm not an attorney, and it's my first
Yeah, no,
time.
that's all right. We got it under
I
control.
would just say, it's a replacement of what was there, it was existing.
Right.
Time is of the essence. I certainly don't know the legal ramifications of that.
It's okay.
it's
So what
fine.
we can get, kind of get it,
Accept it.
Okay.
we can just get that rolled forward, but it would be nice to have a copy of, I think it's good to have that extra space behind. It's a good idea. So maybe-
Bill, what do you know what the cost is for the three?
It would cost approximately $12,000 to $20,000.
I mean, that's one of the things the council needs to know.
Right, so maybe if Nancy or Chris, if they have that information, or they can reach out and then get all the information, and then we can add it so that we can do this the right way. Okay. Well,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so everyone's in favor of that donation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name's Thomas Giordano. I'm one of the representatives for Joseph Smikowski. We were one of the lowest bidder for your outsource of your recycling garbage and, grass and leaves. It was for the collection and disposal, and why I say that is because we were the lowest bidder for the grass collection and disposal. I'm sorry, I was trying to go through a couple of different things. I wanted to try to see if I can bring you up to speed a little bit of why you should really go for outsourcing. I know Chris gave you some numbers, but I spoke with Chris before the bid came out, and I sent some questions in. I know this is one of the first times that the village is putting out for outsourcing of your grass and leaves. And there's a lot of different costs that after we were speaking, and I presented him with some questions that we tried to get some answers to, didn't actually help the village in explaining why. I'm sorry, I kind of lost a little train of thought before when I was coming up. Our outsource, our collection, our service for you to go up and down the streets for you to pick up is actually cheaper and would save the village money compared to how you're doing it properly right now. With your collection right now, you're actually Chris didn't actually put all his cost in. You're actually using 2 vehicles with 3 guys on each truck. You're actually bringing it back to your yard. You're dumping it in your yard. You're transloading it. You're taking another separate truck to bring it to a disposal site. So your costs are actually a little bit higher. With our cost for just doing the collection, it will actually save the village tremendous money. The problem with the bid that came out, and since this is was a public bid for recycling, it's not garbage, it's not RFP, we could come in and discuss it with you if you would like to discuss it on a further basis. I spoke with Chris with some different options that actually make a lot more sense for the village. The problem with this bid is that the disposal is not a concrete cost. It's just an estimated cost. And what that means is we don't have exact numbers of what the disposal cost is going to be for the village on its grass and its leaves. Chris only gave us a roundabout number and wants us to judge how much grass that the village is actually going to have at the end of each year. So we could come in and the town can make their disposal cost with the proper dump, which we can assist with, to get you a proper number at a lower number, and you pay only on the cost that you're going to dispose of. On this way, we have to estimate, and we're guessing on how much your disposal is going to be for the year. So they gave us a roundabout number of, just for 1 month, it's going to be 800 cubic yards. Well, what happens if it's 1,000 cubic yards? They only gave us an estimate for one couple of months of last year, no other basis of an ongoing source for the last 5 years. And I believe the village has been doing this now consistently for the last several years. So with that said, is our collection cost to send you up and down the streets for your residents actually comes out to a lesser amount of what you're using now. Chris came out with a purchase of a truck, and just to educate you on a truck also, brand new trucks are going for over $250,000, and that's if you buy more than one vehicle at a time. And unfortunately, garbage collection trucks or recycling trucks don't last 20 years. The average life is 3 to 5 years on a vehicle before maintenance has become more than overwhelming on them. With that said, you also have insurance costs, which are increasing every single year to about $20,000 per truck to insure one of the recycling collection vehicles going up and down the street, plus your labor, plus your workman's comp, plus all your other costs. But if you would let us come in and discuss and set up a program with you, is that you actually pay for your disposal instead of having us estimated on it.
Thank you. Time's up.
It would be a different
Thank you.
outcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gary Giordano. I'm Thomas's older brother. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm going to try to put into English what he was trying to tell you. We just bought 5 new trucks. The break was at 5 trucks to get the lower price. It cost me $248,000 for 2019s. The finance company only finances between 3 years and 5 years maximum or minimum, because that's the life expectancy of the truck, number one. Number two, what he was trying to tell you with the collection is your numbers are diluted. And the reason why your numbers are diluted is because you didn't get all your numbers put into your package.
Can I just stop you 1 minute? I just want to ask our village attorney a question.
Sure.
Matt, this is part of a bid, and what they're discussing here is components of a bid that perhaps the bid didn't go out properly, maybe the specs weren't proper, and now it's being discussed here, and it might actually, I don't know, but is this something that in conversation is opening up a can of worms if we go out to bid again?
I think, well, when the gentlemen were done, I was going to, if anybody had any questions, I was going to say, hold off on questions. We're just going to talk to Chris about this.
All right.
And get it down.
Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't compromising anyone's opportunity to fairly bid on anything.
That's fine. I didn't lose my time, did I?
No.
No, go ahead.
Okay. The reason for that being that you didn't get all your numbers is, first of all, you have 3 men on a truck. Yours are running 2 trucks. That's the number that you got. After those fellows go up and down the street and collect the material, they bring it back to another yard. They dump it there. There's another set of men that now pick that up and load it onto another vehicle. That's a 3rd vehicle. That vehicle then brings it to the dump to get rid of it. I don't know if those costs are included in there. I don't think so. Number 3 is the dump rate itself. We don't know what the dump rate it is. It went up last year, and it went up the year before, and went up the year before that. If we take it over, it's not your cost no more, it's our cost. But you never gave us what the amount of tonnage is. So we kind of shot in the dark because we didn't have no numbers. So we do 23 towns right now in Bergen County and Essex and Hudson. And we do this so we have a pretty good idea of 25,000 residents, what your average tonnage ballpark could be or should be. The other problem is this industry changes like this. Last year you were getting paid for your recycling. This year you're getting charged to get rid of your recycling. Nature's Choice is under indictment right now, or under, I don't know, so I can't really say what they are, but they may be closing down, is the word that's on the industry right now. If that closes down, there's one less player to take this material. They already closed down in Edison, which took this material, and there's a very shrinking market to take this stuff. And when that goes away, the price is going to go up even more. But again, that's not your problem. It's our problem as the hauler. The people that you have operating these vehicles now are part-timers. Yes, they're making $18 an hour, $17 an hour, $20 an hour, but that's not counting workman's comp, insurance, and all the other expenses that goes along with them. That's your soft cost that you don't see. That wasn't put in there. What Tommy was trying to explain to you is, this is not a 901 or a garbage bid. It's an RFP for recycling. An RFP for recycling means, and the attorney could back me up on this, means it's not under the statute of the law of the 901 laws. The public contracting bids. So we have the right, and you have the right, after you come into the first bid, to negotiate. We could come in at our time and expense and basically educate your department from our knowledge of doing this at no cost to the town, and kind of show you or guide you on a way. If you don't go with us, that's fine, but at least you'll know now what to do for your next bid, and if you do go out to a bid. Cliffside Park is a perfect example. They went out to bid 3 times. The 3rd time they finally awarded, because they were doing it in-house, and then they wanted to keep it in-house, and it was a big thing to get rid of all these people, but you don't have full-timers, you only have part-timers. So it's a lot easier for you to take that expense off the town. Workman's comp, our workman's comp just went up from $100 to $125 per man per day. I mean, you know, per week. That's out of control. I don't know if you have any questions. I'm nervous because I don't want to run out of time, but if you have any questions, or if you would like us to come in.
It's public comment, we're not going to ask any questions.
Okay, if you just want us to come in and do a free analysis for you, or negotiate with with Chris or your people, we'd be glad to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Oh. Good evening.
Good evening. Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I was quite interested in your conversation tonight regarding the parking kiosks, because as you know, I'm a big proponent of putting the parking kiosks throughout the municipality. And one of the primary reasons that I'm a proponent of that is something that was not discussed by any of you tonight, and that was the fact about the cash control. You all remember that $750,000 was missing from the village's revenues several years ago. Now, moving to the parking kiosk tightens that up in terms of cash is now not in as many spots. It is in a few spots. I understand you're maybe going to put in 10 more kiosks. It's in a few spots, and you know exactly how much cash is supposed to be in the kiosk when it's opened. So again, I am urging you to move as quickly as possible to getting those kiosks in the entire village and eliminating as many, if not all, the meters as you possibly can. Makes sense to me. The public didn't have the advantage of seeing the numbers that you were provided earlier this evening, but it sounds like, based upon the numbers you were looking at, in every case the kiosks are producing more revenue than the meters produced or than Park Mobile produced. So to me, it's a no-brainer. You should be telling Bob Rooney to order 10 more, if that's what's in the budget, right away, and to start putting those in. And again, it is particularly important because you start to really lock down that cash and put that cash into a device where it knows exactly how much should be in there, as opposed to the meters where you have no idea what's in there at all. So again, I urge you to move as quickly as possible and order Mr. Rooney to put in, or order the manager to order Mr. Rooney to buy as many of the kiosks as our budget will allow, and to start putting those in as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'll close public comments. I do want to get a chance to allow Matt to address the comments made by Mr. Giordano tonight. That's the first that I've seen.
The only comments that I'm going to make is what I said before, is that we're going to talk to Chris about.
Yeah, okay. But that was first time that we've ever had, I've experienced something like this. the denigration of an RFP that went out, and I just,
Yeah, it's uncommon, so.
it's uncommon, and I wonder if there was that much detail, had we all been in agreement to move forward with the number that's proposed.
Certainly have faith in Chris's process, so we'll figure it out and go from there.
And again, we're going to get, we did not have the benefit of those documents when we got here, so it would be helpful when we get those that we'll all have an opportunity to review.
All right, so with that, I'll take a resolution to go into closed session.
Be resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on March 6, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached. That said closed session be held in the caucus room of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to personnel contract negotiations, to matters to include PBA negotiations, and personnel matters to include the water pollution control facility. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 et sec. Be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.